Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Okay, welcome to the February meeting of the Cabinet. I'm Councillor Perai Ahmet, Leader of the Council, and I'm chairing the Cabinet. So for the public record, we have Cabinet members present, as well as a number of senior officers here. Some non-Cabinet members are also present, and additional officers are also joining the meeting virtually online. If any virtual attendees wish to speak, if they can please indicate, and we will pick this up in the meeting. This meeting is being streamed live and recorded by the Council for subsequent broadcast via the Council's internet site. So I'm going to ask if Cabinet members can please introduce themselves and state their portfolio area, and also when speakers do come forward, if they can also please state their name and their position as well, please. So if I can start with you, Councillor Chamwani.
Councillor Seema Chandwani, Cabinet Member for Resident Experiences and Tackling Inequality.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Ibrahim Ali, Cabinet Member for Climate Action and Environment.
Councillor Donna Carlin, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services.
Councillor Ruth Gordon, Cabinet Member for Placemaking and the Local Economy.
Councillor Ajda Ovac, Cabinet Member for Communities.
Councillor Emily Arkell, Cabinet Lead for Culture and Leisure.
Lucia Desneves, Cabinet Member for Health, Social Care and Wellbeing.
Councillor Sarah Williams, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Housing and Planning.
Zena Brabson, Cabinet Member for Just wait till that's done. Cabinet Member for Children, Schools and Families.
Thank you. Do we have any apologies for absence tonight?
None received, Chair.
Item 3, urgent business. There are no new items of urgent business tonight. Item 4, do any Cabinet members have declarations of interest to make tonight? No declarations of interest. Item 5, which is the notice of intention to conduct business in private, any representations received and the response to any such representation. So there were no representations received at the agenda publication stage in relation to exempt items on this agenda. Item 6, which are the minutes. Can we please confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of January 2025, please? Great. Okay. Item 7, which is deputations, petitions and questions. So we have received a deputation from local residents and users of the community centre relating to Down Lane Park, Phase 2A Hub, which is the permission to initiate tender action for a construction works contract. I have accepted this deputation as it relates to an item on the agenda and concurs with Part 4, Section B, Paragraph 30 of the Haringey Constitution. We also have representatives from the Tottenham Hale Community Centre speaking on this item as well, and they'll be speaking later on as part of the substantive item. So given the public attendance for this item, I'm going to propose that we vary the agenda to take item 16 on Down Lane Park Phase A2A after this item. Is that agreed? Excellent. So I just want to be clear, we've got some young people with us today, welcome. That I just wanted to set out how this works because this is a formal meeting of the Cabinet. So I'm just going to go through the process. Once we hear from the public attendees yourselves, you've got a certain amount of time you were given. I'm sure you were that was explained to you. Councillor Gordon, Ruth Gordon will respond, and then we will proceed to consider item 16. Councillor Gordon will present the report and Cabinet colleagues will ask questions. This item has commercially sensitive information which we legally cannot consider in the public part of the meeting, and we will need to consider this information in the private part of the meeting to come to a decision. Therefore, the decision on Down Lane will be notified in a decision list which will be published tomorrow morning on the Council website. And Democratic Services will forward the decision to the public attendees as a way forward. So you've already joined us at the top table. So if you can introduce yourself, you have 3 minutes to present your deputation, and then the Cabinet member will respond and there'll be an opportunity for questions. So if you can, please introduce yourself.
First, we are local residents that live near Down Lane Community Centre, and I think that's all. Presumably our time starts now. Yeah? Okay. Do you want to go for it, Lena? Thank you for having us today, by the way.
My name's Alina and I'm 12 years old. I have lived in Tottenham all my life and I have been going to the community hub at Down Lane Park since I was in year 3. I want to share a poem about why this place is important to me. A home of the community feels like family and is calm. A chance to meet new people like music to my ears. It smells like nature, my sister and home. It tasted like yum yums and getting in trouble. Orange juice clapping and singing, everyone can grow. What else could you want and where else can you call home? What else could you want and where else could you call home? My mom told me if you care about something, you should fight for it. People call my baby sister Jeanette the grumpy one because she goes to the community, but when she goes to the community garden, she always smiles. I love this place so much and I'm gonna fight for it with my mom and my sisters and all our friends. We are scared because the replacement hub you want to build is too small to fit our community. Please listen to us and don't make the community space smaller. Thanks for listening.
Hi, my name is Fitine. Tottenham Hale has changed a lot. Families, I know that Down Lane Park have been left areas there has been affected, and we lived here for more than you can imagine. When we saw the new plan, the replacement hub, my friend said to me, I feel like they are squeezing us into a smaller and a smaller space until there is no space for us at all. We know that many of us are also mom who grew up in Tottenham. You understand the challenge we face and you understand why those spaces are lifeline. We do not need to explain that to you. We know that some of you were part of the campaign, just like us, stopping Haringey developing vehicles, saving a Latin village. They showed us the power of a community voices and that it's never too late to change a course. This project means to be about to improve the park, but the new plan do not feel like an improvement. They feel like it feels like a huge loss. The current building, it's a 530 square feet, and the replacement hub, it's only 150 square feet, 1/5 of the building that we have. This does not meet the community needs. Since the budget cut, since the project cut, this progress has gone off the track and the residents do not feel like they were being listened to. We are asking to listen to your heart and listen to us. Do you truly believe in this building is what the community needs or want? We are asking you not to push ahead with the current plan and vote towards this construction tent today without a support of the community. We're asking you to slow down and reassess your options. Based on the council's own building report, commissions surveys that's visibly studied and worked the amounts to bring the current building into a compliant is just £150,000 plus a VAT instead of building a new Hope 2.5 million for the new building. Local groups are now coming together to create a community plan to use the pavilion building with a childcare, food and a gardening. We need this space. We need this big space to share together. This is not possible, the proposal of the new building. This is an opportunity for the councils to show the real community lead and development looks like. If we lose this space, we will lose our community. So we would like to fight and to save it. We have had a community assessment tender by 100 of the neighbours already, and we do not ask to each other. We will not stop speaking to each other. We have to support our public gallery, and many friends watched at home tonight. all local elections approaches, we will be a door knocking and doing all that we can do to make sure that we are representing our council and who has our interest at the heart. Our voice must be heard. Paris, we are asking you to meet with us in person. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to give a particular thank you to the young people. I know it's hard at any age, but very brave. And I heard no nerves from you tonight. So that was very, very well done. It's big effort from all of you. The Cabinet member is going to respond. And I think we've probably got some things that we need to say here, because by no means is, we've got plans, and those plans should include the local community and do include the community, which is why we're hearing from the Tottenham Hale Community Centre a bit later on. But I'm going to let my colleague Ruth Gordon just explain that, because I do fear that there might have been some misunderstanding somewhere along the line here. Ruth, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you very much for your deputation, and thank you for the contribution, especially from the young people here. And, I absolutely understand and share your love of this park. I've lived in Tottenham Hale for the past 28 years, and I've certainly brought up my son walking through that park. I go through that park every single day with my dog, and I thoroughly enjoyed the park's improvements that we've already delivered. So we've got something like more than £7 million investment into Down Lane Park. I think we've shown that we've delivered, and we've delivered facilities along with collaboration with young people in particular, all the way through the design process of what we've already delivered in the park. We've had young people from Harris Community, Harris Academy School, which is one of our neighbours, and we have had young people on the co-design group. We have had hundreds and hundreds of responses when we've been going through this design process. The phase that we are going into now is the delivery of the second part of the park. And I want to just specifically come to the questions that you've put to us. And I know that we had a meeting with Tottenham Family Fight Back group in November. I think there was myself and 2 other cabinet members that came down to talk to you in November, and we've got another meeting in the diary for the end of this month. So discussions are still ongoing about how this will materialise. But you've raised a couple of questions that I do need to respond to. So one is about whether we can refurbish the old pavilion building. We looked at this extensively when we had the co-design process, and to see if we could do that. The conclusion that we came to was that it is beyond any refurbishment, any value for refurbishing that building. The design of it is not appropriate. It was a pavilion building for the bowling club, and that's what it looks like. It's got no windows to the outside. It's got space, hardly any space in it at the moment. And the new community hub would provide much needed space with open access to the gardens, and it would also produce all the facilities that we need and that we've discussed endlessly with groups like Disability Action Haringey, who have been really particularly involved with us and designing facilities that would include fully accessible toilets, changing places toilets. These are really important matters for all of the community, so that we've got a facility that is there into the future. And the lifespan on the existing building is very, very limited. We would have to spend an enormous amount of money to get anywhere near the same sort of facilities that a community group could run into the future and actually make its way in the world for future use. So we have considered that really, really carefully. With the question of the size of the building, like I say, we have put a massive amount of investment into the park and into these facilities. And yes, we've had to, cut our budget. These things happen all the time when you're dealing with big projects. But what we've been doing with that cutting of that budget is spreading some of that money around to 8 other parks that have been refurbished across the borough. So it isn't like, that money hasn't gone to good use. It's actually going to provide much better park facilities across the whole of the borough. And I just want to address this thing about the space, because what we've got at the moment with the existing community hub is actually a tiny, tiny space that is not fit for purpose. It's one room with a little kitchenette. There is, if you go on the square footage, a bit more room, but there are changing rooms, facilities that have never been used for changing room facilities, actually, in all the years that I've known that hub to be open. Even though we've got footballers that come every day and want to have changing rooms, they've never been available. So it's used for storage. A room at the moment is a small room with very little light coming in. It's not appropriate for having children's activities in there, I don't think. And with a small kitchenette. What we will have in the new building is a proper kitchen facility with a proper cafe facilities. We'll also be accommodating our park staff, who at the moment are accommodating in the most appalling buildings in the park. So we'll be able to encompass all of that within the budget, and it will be a building that is capable of being run by a community organisation, that they can hire those rooms out and have a fully functioning and state-of-the-art, absolutely modern, fit for purpose building. And I think that's what our community deserve. Everybody has talked about the levels of deprivation in this part of the borough, and we're only too aware of why people need open spaces. We know of the benefits of those spaces.
I have to ask you to wrap up,
Councillor
Councillor Goodwin, please.
going to provide. So I'll finish my remarks there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any cabinet members have any questions, please, either for the deputation or for Councillor Borden? Councillor Brabazon, can you please introduce yourself?
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for coming and making your deputation. As a cabinet member for children, I have particular interest in this matter, and I think we met at the meeting at Ward's Corner. So I just want to, as a preface, say, we run a very large programme called the Holiday Activity and Food Fund, which indeed the previous occupant, Living Under One Sun, got some funding from the Holiday and Activity Food Fund to deliver activities at Down Lane Park. And last summer we spent about £500,000 to lots of providers, and of course those providers have to comply with all sorts of contractual agreements. They have to show a plan for their safeguarding and so on. And I think you said in your deputation that you were thinking of organising into a group. Is that right? Did I hear that correctly? You were going to provide activities? Did I hear that correctly?
So we do provide activities. So when we had the place, we do provide activities. And in the future, we wanted to do a food bank. We wanted to run activities, gardening, and so on.
So could I ask you,
To add to that,
may I finish my question? Could I ask you, in the light of this, obviously as a local authority, we have to make sure people who provide things are compliant with all the statutory requirements. So how would you approach, for example, making sure you had a safeguarding policy and that you were able to ensure that, because as a local authority, there are rules and requirements that we would have to ensure that people who were doing this in the community complied with. So if you could tell us how you would go about that, I'd be most grateful.
so just to be clear, I mean, we're here to talk about the space itself. We're not saying that we, as us 4 individuals here, for example, are going to be running the new hub, the sort of, if the hub doesn't get demolished and gets refurbished rather than replaced, we aren't saying that us 4 individuals are going to run it and have all the safeguarding policies ready to go. What we're saying is that the hub as it is, we've got the quantity surveyor in who says that it's so much cheaper to refurbish it, and there'd be a ton of money left over to make it nicer and deal with the storerooms and, you know, get some accessible toilets in there. And then what there would be is a large enough community space, which we must make the point that it currently has a nursery in it as well. And I think that's often forgotten, you know. But yeah, I know, but like, you know, if we're talking about provision for children, like nursery places in that ward are very low, as you know. So the nursery is part of the community space. And what this community plan that we're talking about, I think that's what you're referring to from our little speech. But like, we've got a community plan group coming together who are a number of professionals. We've got youth workers, school teachers, architects, building designers, gardeners. All of them have professional qualifications, have done a million safeguarding policies. And, you know, if the building remained, then those people could be some of the people that put themselves forward for running the new space. But this deputation is about the importance of holding onto the space. And we're saying as an extra offering that we've been meeting together, and there are clearly so many people, professionals with immense safeguarding experience and all the rest, who could be part of running that space if we could hold on to it.
Do you mind? I'm just going to, you made a comment there about there being a lack of spaces. I'm going to bring in our Director of Children's Services, and because I just want a bit of clarity on that, and also the safeguarding points, because I think it's really important that we stress that, in that it's not, I don't doubt that there are professionals involved, but there's also the understanding about our duty as a council and how we operate. So, Anne, I don't know if you just want to say something about the nursery places, just for clarity for everyone who's tuned in and is in the audience.
Thank
Oh, there you go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. My name's Anne Graham. I'm the Director of Children's Services for Haringey, and I have responsibilities that cover nurseries and schools and so on. I think you said that there was a shortage of nursery places in this area. That I don't think is the information we have. I just thought it would be important to let you know that. When it comes to nursery places, I think we have a surplus, but for the panel, I can provide that information outside of the meeting. In terms of safeguarding, we know that safeguarding is everyone's responsibilities, and there are sets of standards and procedures that a unit has to comply with. Some of them do get inspected by Ofsted, such as nurseries, and so we would need to make sure that, you know, those standards and safeguards were always in place. Thank you.
Sorry, no, it's not a dialogue, I'm afraid. What I will suggest when we get to the end of this, I think there has been an offer to meet before, you said it, but clearly there is an organisation that we've currently give a temporary still. I don't know if you've met and spoken with them, but clearly there's a conversation that needs to happen in terms of this group and having a constructive conversation about going forward in this space. But we'll do that outside this meeting. But I'm just going to see if anyone else needs any. So I don't want to cut you off. We'll come back to it, but I don't think we're going to finish that dialogue tonight. So has anyone else got any more questions to either Councillor Gordon or deputation? No, no. Okay. Yeah, we're going to move to the substantive item. So, as I said, the Cabinet it's a meeting in public. It's not a public meeting, which is why we don't have that dialogue that goes back and forth. However, what we can do, as I said, is make sure that we come back and have that conversation with the organisation. We don't want to be in a constant tussle. As a council and as an administration, we're very committed to working with our communities, and that should hopefully be demonstrated with the work that we're doing all over the borough. So we don't want to get into a combatant situation, which seems to have happened here. So we're going to come back, and there's going to be a meeting to discuss this, especially in light of the fact that there is an organisation that'll be working in there in the next 6 months, and probably you need to have that conversation with them as well. Yeah, excellent. But we'll come back. So if we can get the detail for whoever the relevant person is it yourself, then we can set up a meeting going forward. Yeah, is that all right? Councillor Gordon has responded to the space point as well. Yeah. So I think there has been a response, and as you said, the building, some of that money has been used and invested in parks elsewhere in Tottenham, including Bruce Castle, Chestnuts, Payton Park. I can go on and on. So what we've done is put investment into 8 other parks in Tottenham and Wood Green, which I'm sure children, I certainly know children I know are using all of these parks as well. So that there is a question there. So I think Ruth has already answered that. But I think in terms of Tottenham Hale, we're putting in a lot of effort. There's been a lot of money invested, not just in Down Lane Park, also in the paddock. And you may have seen last week, we've completed 1,000 council homes, 800 of which are in the Tottenham Hale area as well. So there's a lot of work going on there. But what we don't want to hear is any of our communities feel left out of that process. That is absolutely not something we want. So I would really like to carry on this dialogue. Okay, so please, if we've got your details, we can pick that up again. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming, and thank you especially to the young people for lowering the average age here tonight. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to now, do we want to give a clap to them? Is that what's, okay. Just say very impressive, actually. So, all right, if we move to item 16, which is Down Lane Park, phase 2A community hub, permission to initiate tender action for a construction works contract. And I'm going to hand back over to Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, thank you. This is a request for approval to go out to tender for the construction works contractor to deliver phase 2A of the new hub building within Down Lane Park. The council has worked with the community to co-design improvements to the park. To date, 2 significant phases have been delivered in the north of the park, and the next phase will extend the high quality landscaping improvements to the southern areas of the park, delivering a new purpose-built community hub and cafe with attached community garden space and parks depot area, as well as new entrances, sports and play facilities. The play facilities are for the under 12s. The layout of the community hub has been designed to be more efficient, flexible and adaptable for community use. It will function as a multi-purpose space with access to a new community garden. The design of the space will enable a new VCS, voluntary community sector organisation, to take a lease and operate the space as a sustainable, viable community asset, creating tangible impact in the local area in the long term. The park's depot area will enable staff to continue to maintain Down Lane Park to a high standard, with room for storage of vital equipment and staff facilities. Procuring and appointing a suitably qualified contractor is essential to enable the delivery of a high quality, impactful scheme by the summer of 2027.
Councillor Gordon. Now, so this is about the permission for tender for the construction works contract. We do have Mariam Sheikh from the Tottenham Hale Community Centre here as well. Obviously, we just wanted to hear, because we had a deputation coming, we just wanted to hear about some of the plans that are there already in terms. Mariam, I don't know if you wanted to come forward and just say a little bit about what you're doing at the moment. And if you just wanted to introduce yourself in terms of what's going on.
Hello, my name is Mariam Sheikh. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, public members. we're really pleased to be appointed to operate the Downhills Park Pavilion community and have the opportunity to bring the building into life, active community use. When we took on the 29th of January, I remember that day, the keys and opened the building, it was not in a good condition at all. And our main immediate priority was making sure that it's safe and a place that we can operate and is used positively in the community. So we begin our work and we're still working really hard. It's going to need a lot of attention, safety-wise. Also, as we have only for 6 months, we cannot put in a lot of money and effort, so we have to be very clever. Having said that, we want to do this as soon as possible because we only have 6 months and we want to make the most out of those 6 months. While we're doing the work, we're also planning what activity we'll be doing. And I'm really glad that I heard from the young people and the community members, because that's exactly what we want to do. We want to be running activities that engage in young people, youth, new mothers. As you know, that area is building now, and we've got lots of new families that move in that area. We also have community members who are senior, who are still independent but retired, so they kind of left out, like, what am I going to do with my life? And we know those members of the community need attention as well. So we are planning to run activities to engage them, to make sure that they are meeting the new members of the community. We want to hear from the youth, and I'm sure I'll be having word with everyone that is interested coming to the center. Sorry, my notes. For now, our focus is simply running the building, ensuring that it's used purposely and positively, helping serving the local people. And we're open to hear the public's idea. I'm sure I know some of the ladies who were here today, but when we had the keys, the condition of the place was really, really bad. One thing that's, I know that some groups were running activities, but it's not safe to use. And we hope in the next couple of weeks, it will be safe to use. And we hope to see you all when we open it. Thank you so much.
Mariam, do you want to just stay there in case there's questions? Does any of the cabinet have questions for either Mariam or Councillor Gordon on that item? Councillor Over.
Thank you, Chair. This is a question for Councillor Gordon. I know and I'm aware there's been extensive engagement with the community doing the co-design planning for Down Lane Park. Can you just explain a bit more about how the council engaged with the community in terms of the co-design plans?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, so obviously I explained previously that we had a very long 18-month process to design the entirety of the park in both of its phases, and that's how we drew the conclusion about the priorities that local people want. So that was very, very extensive, of thousands of responses from local residents, from stakeholders. And on that co-design group, we had young people on the group. We had Disability Action Network as part of that co-design process, and that's meant that, you know, for example, all of the equipment that has been already installed in the park, so the picnic tables, for example, are wheelchair accessible. You know, the play equipment is accessible for people with all sorts of needs, and that I think has gone down very well with the local community. That's the feedback that I'm getting. But even with the redesign of the hub, then since we've done that, we've had 22. We've had overall, we had 22 workshops. We've had 18 different drop-in sessions. We've had 1,000 survey responses. We've had 500 responses from Harris Academy students. There's been 395 in-person surveys carried out by 11 young community researchers that were trained during that project. So the amount of feedback that we've had and accumulated has made sure that what we're doing is we're responding to the objectives and the aspirations of the local community. I feel very confident that we've been able to do that from the work that we've done. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Any more questions from the Cabinet? Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Miriam, for your deputation, and to the previous deputies as well, actually. Just two questions, one for Councillor Gordon and one for yourself, Miriam. Councillor Gordon, can you just talk us through how, what kind of opportunities we gave to engage all residents in terms of giving them a chance to apply, make their case, what support we offered? I think you should outline a summary, because I'm just quite keen to make sure that we'd reached out to as many people as possible who could be good operators for this centre or for a future centre in the future. What are we doing practically to actually engage people? Not everyone's an expert as to how to fill forms, how to make a business case. What are you doing practically? And then for you, Miriam, obviously as the organisation who's been successful this current tender, what kind of programs are we offering that's sort of culturally diverse for that area? Tottenham Hale's a very, very diverse community. We've got 180 languages spoken that N15, N17 postcode alone. What kind of sort of culture sensitive programs are we going to be doing to make sure that every community feels that they can be a part of this organisation? I know there's festivals coming up. Are there any ideas you've got in mind? It's got a large community on the estates nearby. Just make sure that we make the offer is as inclusive as possible. Thank you.
May I? Yeah. Thank you for the question, Ahmed. Yes, we are aware of the diversity of the local area and the local people. As you know, that Ramadan is coming now, so we are hoping if the building is ready to host Tarawih, as you're aware of. We are hoping to do Eid. We are hoping to do Christmas. Yeah, hopefully we're gonna get there. Easter activities, something that I am basically designing with young people who are Tottenham Hale community users. We're currently running activities in the engine room, which is youth clubs, and I hope I'll be talking to those young ladies and see if they can participate. So these activities are designed with the youth. Youth is two different parties. One is the elderly from 18 to 24, and the 10 to 16 to 18. So they are designing the activities, what they want to do, and we're listening to them and we're delivering. And that's exactly what we will be doing. So we'll be doing youth clubs for boys, for girls. We'll be doing connected lives activity where we have the senior members of the community and the young members of the community coming together, learning from each other and integrate. We will be doing activities that is specifically designed for those who are struggling to integrate with the communities. So I don't have all the activity ready at the moment, but this is what we've been doing last 4.5 years, and now we are ready to take it next level with the community's input.
Thank you. Any more questions from the Cabinet?
I've got.
Oh, right. Apologies. Go ahead. Can we keep it brief, please? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously the tender process for the meanwhile use was a shortened process because by necessity. Obviously we'd had the occupation taking place over the summer, so it meant that we were slightly delayed going out to to have that tender, which was unfortunate. But we did attract actually quite a large number of responses to that, and after that, the vetting process is that it's done by officers, no politicians are involved in that, and they do it blind, so the officers aren't aware of what the name of the applicant is. So it's a very fair and transparent process. I do get the point that you were making about whether organisations are equipped to deal with a council process, which may seem a bit bureaucratic, but we have got Haringey Community Collaborative, which is very supportive of any organisation. We're doing a similar process over in Chestnuts at the moment, where we can offer workshops and help to any community group that doesn't feel like they've got the competence as yet, but they've got a lot of ambition and aspiration. Then that's fine, because we can help people to get to that position. And obviously there will be a whole new tender process going out for the new community hub, and they have to comply with our social value policy, which we've explained on a few occasions at this body. But you know, that is something that Haringey Community Collaborative can help with.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
Just briefly, it's half term next week. So what are you offering at the engine room?
Engine room or the pavilion down here? Yes, engine room. We are running youth activities for both girls and boys. So every Friday we hire that hall, and I'm sure you've seen us if you are around. We do from 5:30 to 6:30 young girls, and then we do 6:30 to 8:30 older girls, and then on Thursdays morning we do have the intergenerational coffee morning, which is quite not packed at the moment, because most people who come winter time, they're not quite active. I think that one will be stopping at the moment, because we're moving from there to the pavilion hopefully by next 2-3 weeks, as soon as it's ready, and we'll be carrying continuing activities there, and we will be sharing this with you all, and the CAF will be open. That is one thing that we really want to do, so that people can just walk in and ask, see the flies. We'll be having a timetable. Those who want to run activities or hire the place, there will be opportunity for them to do that as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we will return to the original order of the agenda, and we will return to resolution after considering exempt information at item 27. Just to add, I've heard a lot of passion here, and a lot of people who are absolutely committed to their local area. And I guess I've already made the point, but I just wanted to end by saying that there doesn't need to be a fight at all. This council is absolutely on side with their communities. Most of us live, work and raise families in the area as well. So the offer to talk is there, and I think going forward we will look to have a meeting where we all come together and really just kind of look at what's best for everyone in that area, because there's a lot of good stuff going on, and we just want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to be a part of that. So thank you, and thank you for everyone coming. I'm going to thank the young people again, because they were absolutely phenomenal. So thank you everyone, and now we're going to move on. Item 8. So item 8, which is the matters referred to Cabinet by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So we have these scrutiny recommendations on the budget, and these are being considered as part of item 9. So
excuse me, Leader. Sorry, I think questions?
No, I've moved on. You can come in on the next item. Okay. Item 9, which is the budget 26-27 and the MTFS strategy for 30-31. Councillor Carlin.
Thank you, Leader. The budget proposed in this report will see a record level of investment in Haringey. We fully recognise the need to reduce reliance on exceptional financial support in the medium term. However, we are determined that we protect our residents and our borough, that we plan for the future with investment that will preserve and improve our resilience as a borough, and that will reduce costs going forward. £343.5 million will be spent on providing the services our residents need and rely on. ensuring our public spaces and communities are clean, safe and welcoming for all. We are committed to building a Haringey where everyone can belong and thrive, and we are ensuring that vital resources go to where they are needed most to realise that vision. The budget proposes that's not right. It proposes that 2.24 million on adults and children's social care, supporting those residents who need help in some of the most challenging times of their lives. 43 million on preventing and addressing the homelessness crisis, including the end of the use of B&Bs as temporary accommodation for families. Money for improving our parks and green spaces, our libraries, supporting low-income residents with the cost of council tax and building new council homes, and money for investing on our existing council homes and estates. These decisions don't come about by accident. They are deliberate. We are making choices. Due to the historic systemic government underfunding, in 25-26 we operated with around 143 million less in real terms in core government funding than we did in 2010-2011. That was the decision in 2010-2011 that the previous government, that the Tory Lib Dem government made to change the funding formula and cut funding to boroughs like Haringey. But in Haringey, we have also seen rising demand for our services, which now cost more to provide. For years, we've been under-resourced to meet the needs of our communities. So we are very pleased that the government has recognised this, changing with fairer funding, changing the funding formula to once again include deprivation in it. And as a result of this, Haringey is going to see a much needed uplift in our funding. The figures in this report, I am pleased to say, are an underestimate, and the spending, the actual settlement that came out yesterday will deliver increased funding for Haringey. While the government was never going to be able to reduce a decade of austerity in one go, this is welcome additional funding that is much needed by our residents and our communities. If funding had been allocated on the basis of need for the past 15 years, we would not be facing the challenging financial position we are in today. But we must face reality as it is. Despite the year-on-year efficiency savings, we do not have the finances to deliver the services that we need, and will be relying on exceptional financial support to balance our budget for 26-27. The budget includes a number of savings that we have already been committed to make and that have been previously approved. And what we will be doing is concentrating on delivering those savings in this financial year, or in the next financial year. This is important, and the other work that we will be doing is important to reduce our reliance on exceptional financial support, as I've said, in the medium to longer term. The decisions that we will take today to build our resilience will reduce that reliance in the future. So it's not, we recognize exceptional financial support is not a grant. We will have to repay it. But despite all the challenges, this is a budget which reflects our value as a council. We continue to deliver the services that our most vulnerable need, and at the same time we maintain vital investment in the things that matter to every resident, including our fabulous parks, our leisure centres and our libraries. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlin. So no questions at this point, but I'm going to ask Councillor Connor to come forward and present the scrutiny recommendations, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would firstly like to thank the finance officers who've supported scrutiny throughout this process and our scrutiny officers without whom we wouldn't be able to undertake the role. I want to begin by acknowledging the very challenging financial context in which this budget has been developed. The scale of the pressures facing the Council is well understood by scrutiny, and we recognise the work that's gone into producing a budget in extremely difficult circumstances. However, scrutiny's role is not to note the difficulty of the position, but to ensure that members are able to properly scrutinise so we can understand, challenge and oversee the assumptions that sit beneath it. The most significant issue remains the Council's reliance on exceptional financial support. Scrutiny has consistently raised concerns about the scale of borrowing, including the projected cumulative borrowing of approximately 603 million by 2031 and the associated long-term financial risk. Members have also highlighted the sustainability of using debt to fund day-to-day services and the impact this may have on future service delivery, particularly in adult social care. Cabinet has acknowledged that this position is not sustainable, and we welcome that recognition. The assumed EFS requirement for 26-27 has reduced to just over 89 million following final budget work, which was noted by scrutiny. However, from a scrutiny perspective, there is still no clear pathway set out for how reliance on EFS will be reduced over time, how affordability will be managed, or what the service level implications may be if borrowing continues at this scale. Without that clarity, scrutiny is limited to noting risk rather than testing how that risk will be mitigated. Beyond EFS, a constant theme across budget is the lack of visibility over how savings will actually be delivered. Scrutiny has repeatedly asked for clearer delivery plans for saving, access to business cases at the point where proposals are being scrutinised, and more transparency around assumptions, risks and contingencies. While Cabinet responses often acknowledge these requests, they frequently defer improvements to future year or later stages of the decision-making process. This makes it difficult for scrutiny to fulfil its role effectively, as savings are reviewed in principle but without sufficient detail to assess realism or risk. This is particularly evident in areas such as housing borrowing costs and the HRA, digital investor-save proposals, and income generation initiatives, where scrutiny is asked to rely on future work rather than being able to examine delivery mechanisms up front. Scrutiny notes a significant financial risk arising from the Council's £173 million bad debt provision, which the Section 151 officer considers high and reflective of weakness in income collection across fees, charges, rents and housing benefit overpayments. Poor income recovery reduces resources for essential services, widens the budget gap and increases reliance on borrowing, undermining the Council's overall financial sustainability. Members also expressed concerns about the weakness in the monitoring processes that were highlighted in the KPMG report and recommended that reassurances were sought that more robust processes were being established. To be clear, scrutiny is not seeking to delay decision-making. What we're asking for is easier, clearer information so that members can provide meaningful challenge before decisions are finalised rather than after implementation has begun. In closing, scrutiny recognises the seriousness of the Council's financial position and the work undertaken around the budget. However, to enable scrutiny to properly fulfil its role and to strengthen overall financial governance, the panel formally recommends that the Cabinet provide clear medium-term plan setting on how the reliance on exceptional financial support will be reduced, including the implication for affordability and service delivery. Ensure that future budget and saving proposals are accompanied by clearer delivery plans, including timescales, key assumptions and identified risks. Make business cases and supportive information available to scrutiny at the point of proposals are first considered, rather than later in the decision-making process. Identify how audit and scrutiny can work together to share relevant information, and establish defined scrutiny touchpoints within the budget and savings process so that members are able to provide meaningful challenge before decisions are finalised. These steps would significantly strengthen transparency, accountability and confidence in the Council's approach to financial sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Connor. So the responses are in the report. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to touch on in response to that, councillor Carlin. If so, very briefly before we move to questions.
The responses are, as the leader has said, are in the report. We are always looking to improve the scrutiny process, and we fully recognise and appreciate how important that is, because those are the checks and balances on us as a cabinet. And so thank you for the proposals that you have put forward. And as I've said, we are always looking to improve the processes. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have questions from the cabinet on the budget report to councillor Carlin? Obviously, the responses that have gone to councillor Connor have been collective, but if there's anything to councillor Carlin, councillor Dasnevs.
Thank you, Chair. Given that the financial settlement only came out yesterday, I wonder if you could give us a bit more of a sense of what it means for Haringey and Haringey's budget.
Thank you so much. As I alluded to in my introduction, the settlement that we have received was a little bit more than we expected. And we are very grateful that the government has recognised the importance of further funding and the importance of increasing the funding to local government, especially for authorities like ours that have high levels of deprivation and limited ability to raise money, especially through council tax. I'm going to hand over to Taryn, who's been crunching numbers all day today, to give a breakdown of exactly what we think we are receiving. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlin. And yes, as noted, very timely, isn't it? The day before we take the budget to Cabinet, the final settlement was published yesterday. So the budget report that you see in front of you is based on the provisional settlement that came out just before Christmas. It was a pleasant surprise when we kind of clicked on that file yesterday. So as set out in the report, we thought we were going to get an estimated 18.4 million additional over 3 years, actually based on the figures that came out yesterday. And as Councillor Carlin says, we've been busily crunching the numbers because so many things have changed with the funding formula this year. But the difference is that we think that will be a further 15.9 million additional over the 3 years. So what that means is an additional, in total, we think 35 million increase over the next 3 years, of which, and the figure we probably are a bit more certain on, which is the most important for tonight, is of that 17.2 million will be for 26-27. So, you know, that is essentially made up. So that's a 5.4 million increase for next year in government grants compared to what you are seeing in the report. That is made up of essentially an additional, a small sum, I suppose, 400,000 in homelessness grant, particularly recognising the additional burdens from the Renters' Rights Bill that will be implemented, 3 million increase in the recovery grant, which we know not every local council is in receipt of that, and then 2 million increase in what we call our revenue support grant. So that's just a general grant that we get to recognise need. So I suppose just to put that into context in this report, within the report or the draft that you see in front of you in the published papers, we talk about 89.2 million of exceptional financial support that will be required. That reduces, so every little counts. I would say, as you kind of quite often hear me say, it doesn't come close to managing all the pressures that we've got, which you can see in the report are quite significant, but it will reduce our exceptional financial support requirement to 84 million, which is a move in the right direction. Not quite enough. I'd quite like 84 million in additional grant, but I know I'm not going to receive that. So we will be submitting a revised figure to government, probably either close of play today or tomorrow. Thanks.
Excellent. Any more questions from the council? No, Councillor Connor, do you have questions on this item?
I have three questions. Thank you. I'm going to try and remember the figures. So at 1.6 in the paper, the 26-27 budget now relies on an EFS of 84 million. So obviously this is, it needs to be repaid with financing charges, which I know you've said cost 10 million. I'm assuming that's going to be slightly less. But we can agree this is an unsustainable amount of borrowing. So can yourself as the Section 151 officer indicate what plans have been discussed with the council to cut this debt, other than the usual savings have been shown to be difficult to be fully realised? Question 2, at 1.22 in the report, there remains an estimated budget gap of 239.5 million between 27 and 2031. So that's a huge deficit over those 5 years. Again, question to the Section 151 officer. Are you advocating far greater savings or even cuts in non-statutory services than are currently planned for this financial year? And question 3, on capital on page 16 at 1.26, the council's ability to borrow, to prudently borrow to fund capital schemes, and the EFS is limited by the budgetary pressures. In 2026-27, just over 220 million of planned spend is funded from borrowing. The financing cost of delivering this level of investment is estimated at £55 million, and the council recognises these costs are too high. So can the Section 151 officer indicate which plans have been discussed that need to be removed from our capital programme, or reducing the spiralling costs down from 55 million in 26-27, as this is only a few months away? Thank you.
Thank you, Pippa. As a cabinet meeting, the questions I presume are posed to me. Thank you. So these aren't questions for the 151 officer. These are questions for us as cabinet and for me as the cabinet lead. Your questions, although specific on specific issues, are really can be joined together as basically saying that we are going to be in a position, if we carry forward in terms of the projections in this paper, to have an unsustainable level of borrowing going forward and an unsustainable amount of money that we will be paying interest on, etc. And I can assure you that as a cabinet, we are well aware of the risks of that. What we don't want to do, and are determined that we won't do, is end up in a position where we have, where we are borrowing so much money going forward that, and some other boroughs have found themselves in that position. So we have a budget, as Taran is wont to say. Our budget is produced at a specific point in time, as Taran is wont to say. And obviously, as we go forward, and as I have said before, and we will always do, we will always be looking at ways to reduce that borrowing going forward. We do have to ask the government for money to reduce to actually make sure that we have a balanced budget, and EFS is the method that the government is using to support probably up to 30 councils this year, and latest reports that I've said probably up to a third of all councils by next year, and next financial year and the financial year after, which is, I'm sure, one of the reasons that this additional funding has come forward now, this additional funding in the settlement, and hopefully we will see additional funding thereafter. But this is what we've got going forward after this year is a projection. And the budget as set, what we don't want to have is a budget that overspends. So what we have done in the budget is to ensure that we've taken almost the most pessimistic scenarios in terms of how we set it. At a council tax meeting today, we may be a little bit better in terms of council tax receipts than what is in the current budget in terms of the projections that we're seeing at the moment, etc. So there are a lot of things that we are doing across the council and will be doing across the council and continue to do, because we are fully aware that this is not a sustainable position. What we are determined to do, as I said in my introduction, is we're not prepared to make performative cuts. We are not prepared to simply cut things so that we can show that we're cutting them. And by doing that, really damage our residents who rely on us and also damage our borough in the longer term. Because if we make performative cuts, they may save us a little bit of money now, but they can very often cost us money in the longer term. And what we have to be doing is looking at that medium term of where we're going to be in about 3 years' time and actually how we're going to get there. And that includes everything, and it includes investment in the correct places, and it includes really making sure that the money that we spend wisely. But we are determined to protect our residents and protect our borough. Thank you.
Councillor, thank you, Councillor Collins. Is that okay? That's
a little bit on the capital, or was that in the round?
In the round, in terms of capital, our capital programme, as it says in the report, is constantly under review. We constantly will look at whether we can do things cheaper. We will constantly look at whether the capital we need to spend now, and whether we actually need to borrow the money when we borrow the money. And that capital programme is constantly under review. You will know that looking back at our capital programme, how much it has already been reduced in the time certainly that I have been the cabinet lead, and we constantly do that all the way through the year on all of our capital spend, because that's part of the thing that's part of what we do to make sure that we maintain our sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. So if we can move to the resolution, which is set out in 3.1 of the report. This is on page 18 to 19 of the agenda. Are we all in agreement? Agreed, thank you. Item 10, which is the adoption of the capital strategy 26 to 36. Over to you again, Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Leader. Our mission is to build a fairer, greener borough. This is our strategy for public investment in local public infrastructure, our parks, roads, leisure centres, libraries, and much more. We want great quality infrastructure for all our residents in every neighbourhood. Since 2022, we've improved our parks, we've refurbished 4 public libraries, our leisure centres are now publicly run. We're fixing them up and investing capital to do so. Going back to Pippa's point earlier, the reason that we are investing the money in our libraries and in our parks is also because that will enable them to attract more people in our libraries, to rent out rooms, and actually to make them more sustainable for the future. So these are wise investments, and we're doing this in collaboration with our residents, building local public services and infrastructure to meet everybody's needs. But we do recognise, as I have just said, that we need to keep our borrowing requirement as low as possible to ensure that the debt and associated cost to our revenue account and our housing revenue account remain sustainable in the medium to longer term. Wherever possible, we will use alternative sources of funding, and our duty is clear: to invest responsibly and to protect essential local services. Equally, the strategy is a statement of intent about the future of our borough. It translates our Borough Vision 2035 and the Haringey deal into a practical, affordable programme that delivers safe and affordable homes, thriving and safer places, opportunities for children and young people, climate action, and better health and well-being. And as the leader said, we are so proud as a borough that we are building council homes. We are not just building council homes, we are building exceptionally high quality, beautiful council homes in our borough, and we have already built over 1,000 and have thousands more that are being built. And this is transformative for people's lives, but makes us our residents more resilient when you have a safe and stable home. So the things that we are doing, which we are focusing in our capital strategy on 3 principles: getting the basics right, delivering on time, and delivering on local priorities. We will maximize external funding, reduce long-term revenue pressures, and ensure that every pound works harder for our residents. Our approach recognizes capital investments not just about infrastructure. It is a lever to drive growth, support preventative measures, and ease future revenue pressures. The money that we invest today can save us money in the future. With strong governance and annual review, the strategy provides the discipline and flexibility we need to build a fairer, greener Haringey where everyone can belong and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlin. Has anyone got any questions? Any cabinet members? No. Councillor Connor?
Thank you. Questions to the cabinet member? At 4.3 in the report, it says a significant proportion of the capital programme is funded through borrowing, and the year-on-year increase needs to be reversed to protect the financial sustainability of the council and to remain affordable within prudential limits. So question 1, has the decisions which have been taken on reversing the spend on capital schemes been enough to protect the financial sustainability of the council? Question 2, if EFS follows the higher figures forecasted in the MTFS, will this have a direct impact on the capital programme, and how much borrowing will be utilised for it? And question 3, many capital projects are subject to funding on an investor-save basis. Can you give an indication of the percentage of investor-save projects since 2022 that have actually realised the savings initially scoped when the borrowing requirements were set out for approval? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Connor. I think your first question was asking, sorry, your first question was asking about whether we actually, what we need to reverse in terms of maintaining our financial sustainability. And as I said in my previous answer, we are continually looking at our capital programme, and we will continually look at our capital programme. What we have to make sure is that everything that we do, we know is either going to deliver us a saving. It's something that we need to do now. So if we're fixing buildings, for example, this is something we need to do now, that we can't get any alternative funding, that we need to borrow for it, etc. So we are being very stringent, and we are continually, and officers continually look at a lot more stages that they have to go through in terms of capital spend, so that we're making sure that every pound counts. So it is a rolling program of reducing that reliance, and of making, and as I said, of making sure every pound counts in terms of what it delivers for our borough. In terms of EFS and whether that will affect the capital programme, It depends. At the moment, we have some capital receipts, obviously, and we will look at capital receipts as well. But we do know that we will not, we're not allowed to sell community assets, but also that if there's anything that we decide to dispose of, it goes through our SAMPIP, the normal way through our SAMPIP program. Is this something that we need? Is this something anybody needs? Is this the right thing to do? Can it be refurbished, etc.? And that is also a rolling program to deliver those capital receipts that we're continually looking at. So not everything in terms of EFS is borrowing and can't be entirely funded through borrowing. And your final question was our investor saves in terms of 2022. Well, what we have seen, and I can certainly ask our children's officers to respond to that, is that we have actually put money into safety valve, into some of the things that we have done, and where we have invested to save in those programs, and they are saving considerable amounts of money, and those are the kinds of things that we're looking at. So, for example, going forward, because it's a big driver of our costs, how we actually educate children who need SEND in repurposed buildings. And I'll just hand over to Anne Graham, who can actually just briefly say, describe the savings that has made. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So I don't have figures to hand as to the amounts that we've saved. However, I am really pleased to say that the Safety Valve programme has helped transform the way that we deliver SEND. What the figures that I do have in mind, and they may not be the most current ones, is that we were asked to bid for £5 million for capital growth about 2 years ago, and we took the opportunity and put in 7, and so we got the 7. Since then, I think we've had about 12 million in capital, but I can come back with the figures for that. What that means is that we've been able to increase the in-house provision by about 118 extra places, so children who are educated outside the borough are now educated inside the borough. That's qualitatively can't be measured, and quantitatively we can come back and let you know what that figure is. I hope that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy to take the specifics out of the meeting because there's thank you. I noticed Taryn's been noting. Thank you.
Thank you. So if we can move to the resolution, which is on page 272 of the agenda, are we all in agreement? Agreed. Thank you. Item 11, which is the Housing Revenue Account Business Plan 26-27, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. So one of the driving ambitions of this administration is to make housing fair. And London's housing crisis has driven up rents and driven down standards. And everyone should be able to live in a home that is affordable, safe and warm. We are prioritising social and affordable housing here in Haringey, building thousands of new council homes at council rents and renovating thousands of the council homes we already have. We have built 1,000 council homes since 2020. We have another 2,000 on site, and we're well on target to have our 3,000 ambition built by 2031. We're starting to build affordable key worker homes too, and we have a £600 million estate renovation plan to refurbish thousands of homes. That plan was just launched today, and I have to say it's a very exciting future we see for our council estates across the borough. This is how we're investing in our local housing budget. This is the housing revenue account, building and maintaining affordable, great quality homes for more and more of our local residents. Just to name a few things, that is, renovating kitchens and bathrooms, having better insulation to keep homes warmer and cutting the cost of heating, having more efficient boilers, again cutting the cost of heating, having CCTV, fob access and other safety measures around buildings. But like all budgets, our housing revenue account has felt the impact of inflation and high interest rates over recent years. The cost of repair, renovate and build has gone up dramatically, as we know, caused by Brexit and the war in Ukraine and the COVID pandemic. But we are taking a series of measures to make sure that the budget is on a strong footing for the long term, including new sources of investment secured on the back of the reputation for delivery of new council homes in Haringey. And that's all set out in more detail in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any questions from the Cabinet to Councillor Williams? No. Okay, Councillor Connor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So my three questions. So at 6.5 in the report, it says there's a need to reduce expenditure on repairs and the high level of voids following historic underinvestment in the housing stock. And this presents a further significant strain on HRA. But earlier on in the report at 2.3, it mentions about the £600 million investment for estate renovation. So does this mean the £600 million spend suggested in the Cabinet report in the plan to refurbish thousands of homes will need to be scaled back at all? Question 2, taking into account the necessary borrowing cost, what's the current expected period for savings to start to be realised from housing acquisitions when compared with, for example, continued use of the private sector? And question 3, the report mentions a 1% void target and repeatedly refers to void performance being a significant financial drag. My council colleagues have identified a number of instances on a single estate where properties were void and that failed to be passed on to the voids team for relet due to administrative errors. We can only assume this is the tip of the iceberg. How can you expect to be saving £1 million on voids alone by next year if you're not aware of which properties are vacant, and how can these sorts of errors be allowed to occur without an automatic fallback to flag them? Thank you.
Thanks for your question. No is the answer to question number 1. That the partnering contracts those partnering contracts are over 10 years. So that is built into the plan as it stands. We would expect there to be a drop in routine repairs over that period, given as described in the report, the historic lack of investment across the piece. Perhaps there's a few examples I could cite quite easily. We look at Kenneth Robbins' house in Northumberland Park that has had repeated repairs, awaiting major works happening, which has taken a huge amount of time through the Building Safety Regulator and the procurement routes used. Now we have the partnering contracts in place, those sort of delays wouldn't happen in the future. The amount of cost that we've had and the amount of inconvenience that residents have faced to those repeated repairs failures due to things just being too old. The whole thing needs stripped out and redoing. So I think that's just one example of how we'll see those repairs cost goes down. Your questions, I have to say, are pretty lengthy, and all I managed to write down from question 2 is feel those savings. So what was question 2?
I'm happy to take this outside of the meeting if necessary. Taking into account the necessary borrowing costs, what's the current expected period for savings to start to be realised from housing acquisitions when compared with, for example, continued use of the private sector?
Yeah, got you. So we already feel those savings, but you're talking more about a lot of those savings are felt across the general fund, not in the HRA. So it's a more complex question. I think we worked out, I mean, it's many thousands of pounds are saved because TA costs are very high because, as you know, we have a subsidy gap on any families in TA. There is a structural issue which needs addressing and can only be addressed really by providing enough affordable accommodation to meet everyone's needs in the borough. But Robbie, if you could give a little bit more detail.
Yeah, on the acquisitions, so our hurdles are set in a way that they actually return positive to the HRA at the point that they are occupied. Okay. So you know, actually, in terms of the various parts of the capital programme, the acquisitions are the ones that actually return positively the quickest.
And yeah, I think if you looked at any provider of housing up and down the country, they would look to have a 1% void rate, and as is 2% at the moment. Having such a high level of new builds and having our neighbourhood move scheme in place is of huge benefit to existing residents and benefits those who have probably put up with the inconvenience of having construction work near them. And it's also reducing the number of families living in a terribly overcrowded accommodation. It also allows us to provide accommodation to downsizers, which of course then allows them, of those overcrowded families, to move into those larger homes. So it has a lot of benefit, but the downside is that we have suddenly maybe 20 or 30 additional voids come online that need dealing with immediately, where historically for generations we have not been building things at scale. Yeah, we don't have, so there's a bit of a lag in the systems catching up with the rate of build, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So if we can agree the resolutions are set out on page 328 of the agenda, do we all agree? Okay, now, before we move on to the next item, I'm going to suggest we vary the agenda slightly and take item 17, which is a toilet strategy, because we have Gordon and John here, and we've got another 5 items until we get there. So with agreement of the Cabinet, can we just push that up the agenda, because there's quite a lot of items in front? Yeah. Is that agreed? Agreed. Excellent. Okay, so if I can take losing count in terms of item 17, which is the Haringey's toilet strategy and action plan 25 to 30, and you're going to introduce, I believe, Councillor Das Neves. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. And as you rightly say, we do have 2 members of the campaign group, Lose for Haringey, Gordon and John, with us. Some of you will remember that this strategy started as Lose for Haringey, coming to the council and presenting a deputation with a lot of passion around access to public toilets for our communities. We know that this is really important to people with health conditions, to people with no health conditions, to people who are older, to people who are younger, to women and men, and to everyone in our community. We're really grateful to Lose for Haringey for helping us start on this journey towards a strategy. And so what is before you is our strategy, and very much the beginning of some work together that will see us consider how we can improve both the facilities that we own and run, but also enable people in all parts of the borough to be able to access a toilet when they're out and about, because we know that's really important for keeping well, for keeping active, for being fit, and for participating in the community generally. So I commend this strategy, but very much also emphasise that it's the beginning of some work together that also includes the NHS, who take great interest in the facilities that we might have that help and support people's health and well-being, and the community, of course, beyond Lose for Haringey as well. And I wonder if John or Gordon had anything they wanted to add, because this strategy really was co-produced with Lose for Haringey.
Thank you very much. I don't want to say very much because we're completely, as Lose for Haringey, in agreement with the production of the toilet strategy. perhaps I should say that I think it's one maybe of the best pilot examples of co-production, where people in the borough have actually worked with council officers and council members. I'm very grateful for the lead of Councillor Das Neves in that respect. So I think we should celebrate it as a jointly produced community officer member piece of work. And it's good to see that we're now going to have a toilet strategy. One of the first, perhaps. It slips out of all the statutory requirements, because nobody really is overall responsible for toilets when you look at the law and councils and so on, which is why we brought it back onto the table, basically. And we're very grateful for Haringey Council in doing that. I think it will put an end, we hope, to the Loo Deserts and the Loo Leash, which we have talked about. The Loo Deserts, parts of the borough where there is nowhere to go when you have to go. And a lot of us of a certain age do have to go quite often. And it's what we think of before we leave the house. Will there be somewhere within half a mile that we can go? Which is one of the main reasons, apparently, for loneliness of older people. Why they don't leave the house is because there's nowhere to go to the loo. It is as simple as that. And all our surveys suggest that. So it's great to see that this is beginning to be tackled. There's other things to be done. We hope there will be an access card in the future. We're talking to NHS about that, a bit like a bus pass, plastic thing you can have in your pocket. Anybody like myself and John and others who do need to go to the loo quite often, not necessarily with severe bladder disease, but with something much less than that, the desperate need to go. So there will be a card like that. We hope the NHS will continue to work on it. So thanks to everybody in the council for helping us co-produce and for your role in now bringing it into policy. And the last thing to say is a particularly immediate thing. There's a toilet at Turnpike Lane bus station right in the centre of the borough, which has been closed for years. The building is there, the facilities are there. TfL need to open it. Can the council do whatever it possibly can to move TfL to open that existing toilet in the centre of the borough, which at the moment no one can use? Leave you with that thought. Do you want to say anything else?
We really appreciate being asked to come here. I guess this is the high point, because the tough stuff, the implementation, it lies ahead. And, you know, that's going to be equally exciting. But there's just two things that I think underpin this kind of enthusiasm that Gordon's captured so well. The first is that this is linked in principle to public health. And we're very, I think, proud and excited to have worked with Will and his colleagues. But they've also built something of a team across council departments, which is, I think, a feature of co-production that is often underrated. So that's a significant element of it. And then just lastly, to throw in that public willingness to share concern about this and speak about it, as you find when you stand in the street and talk about toilets, means it's actually much higher up the informal political agenda of everyday life than we often recognise. That's growing across London. And so I went yesterday to meet the member for Enfield and Wood Green, who was interested in loos for Haringey. It's going to be a tough ride to get Parliament interested in this issue and government, but collaboration between community, local authorities, the mayors and whatever other structures get built in is going to be quite critical to putting pressure on statutory priorities for the government. And this is a tremendous document to have to wave around and share in that context. So we're really, you know, impressed and very proud to be here.
Thank you. Do any cabinet members have any questions? Zena.
Thanks, Chair. I think this is a really terrific report and a terrific document, and I recommend everybody for doing it. I know in the report, in the strategy, it talks about consultation, but we also know that talking about toilets is a bit taboo. So I would be interested to hear from Gordon and John, particularly how you think the consultation went in getting people's views. As an older person, I have particular interest in this subject.
Yeah, the consultation's interesting. I mean, one of the low points was talking to a woman in Tottenham who said, I am not signing anything. That should have been sorted out already. So there's quite an interesting tension that you're realizing you're talking about something that hits a level of public anger and disgust that means the ordinary methods of saying, what do you want? And so on, don't necessarily apply. That sort of tangled history. I think we found a considerable, I mean, you know, Rick and Will might have some thoughts about this. There was a considerable discrepancy around diversity and participation. When we went with paper copies to, I think probably it was the what I still would prefer to call older people's day in Tottenham 3 years ago, we got tremendous response just by sitting there talking to people and writing out with them the responses. The contrast with the largely middle class response to online consultation is something I think the kind of thing that all councils need to take into account. So, but people were very frank and they're very angry and they said so. And of course, you'll all be aware, I think, that at the late in the day, we've got a tremendous push coming from the wheelchair users group and Haringey Disability Action, and I'm going to have a meeting with the wheelchair users group in the next few weeks. So we'll be making common cause and balancing some of those conflicts of interest between incontinent older men like me and Gordon and people for whom this is a lifetime issue because they've got a long-term limiting illness and so on. So the consultation was great, but it did highlight that talking to people with a piece of paper and a pen in your hand is a very effective way of gathering opinion, news, and giving people a chance to talk around the issue in depth.
Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Leader. And just to echo Councillor Bravazan's comments, can I commend this? This is a really exemplar, as you said, Gordon, rightly so, way of collaborative sort of piece of work, and something I'm quite interested in personally. We've got a lot of public toilets in my patch, Bruce Castle Museum, Coombs Croft, White Hart Lane Overground, thankfully, after a long campaign, and the cafe in by Bruce Grove. But one of the things that we've struggled, and I want to get your thoughts about this, and maybe Councillor Das-Nebt in particular as well, is given that there are issues managing public toilets more generally, is there a potential to sort of encourage a business-friendly, you know, public toilet tick box, yes, we're public toilet friendly kind of thing, and similar kind of enabling access to toilet facilities? And just when sort of naming public toilets should be reopened, can I also put on the record the number next to number 7 pub on Tottenham High Road? It's a perfectly good toilet, it's been shut for many years. I think Councillor Ovak's patch, that should be probably brought back to use, but I'll leave it there.
Thank you for the question, and this is definitely something that's an important part of the work. It's not the sum total that is engaging with businesses, thinking about an access card, which we're trying to work with the NHS on. You rightly highlight the Bruce Grove cafe and toilet as a really good example. I think there are others. There's one at Duckett's Common as well. But they're not without challenges as well, even those. They're managing it, what happens when the cafe's not open, all those sorts of things as well. So definitely think there's more scope to work with businesses. John alluded to it, but we've had good engagement with High Streets teams on this matter. It's not easy, but one of the other really positive things that we've been able to do is we've been going through local plan work, haven't we? And we've been able to think carefully about how we can future-proof so that we don't have business parks and retail facilities that don't have access to toilets, or that there isn't a clear commitment. And so that's been a really important outcome just from as we've been working, just making sure that that's there as we think about the local plan going forward. So we are asking for that and expecting that, especially in those larger retail spaces. I think there's lots to be done, and I think some businesses, even anecdotally, are open to that naturally, we've just got a great circumstance in which to do it. Others less so, but I think with the power of community and that voice and understanding, I think that will also motivate them to engage and provide those facilities. I don't know if John and Gordon have got anything to add on that.
Well, I'll come in quickly here because I mean, power is a good word. I mean, the council does need power in this situation, and that's part of our job to reinforce. If you go to Waterloo Station, you see signs effectively saying, come and use our toilets. So there's a whole issue about signage in the public conversation. You can shift the mood by suggesting that toilets are part of, you know, a civilized community, something we're proud of, something we recognise the importance of. So I think that sort of wider commitment there is critical. Businesses is really interesting. I mean, there's a great deal of anger within the Over 50s Forum and Lose for Haringey about the approach that was being taken on the Tottenham Hale Retail Park. But actually what people are most annoyed about in Tottenham is the closure of the toilets at Tesco's down on the corner. And each of these is difficult to unlock and unpick. But once one business has to shift, then another one. So you're looking at shaming and opportunity. Lastly, in terms of how you manage these things, Kilburn Older Voices Exchange have put forward the idea of peripatetic care attendants. People shared across 6 or 7 different business sites. It'd be quite complicated to employ them, but we've got to be looking at that because the care attendant, how have I said that? The toilet attendant represents something about the principles of care in a 21st century democracy. We should be looking at that.
Any more questions? Okay, I guess I was just going to add in terms of the taboo, I think that's really interesting. And in solidarity with our older population, there's also specific issues with women, which start a lot younger and for different reasons linked to hormones, pregnancy, menstruation, and also menopause as well. And I think, you know, for women, this is a big issue and things that we kind of talk to each other about occasionally. But I think it's clear it's not only older people, so we do have to talk about this in solidarity and ensure that, you know, we're involving everyone because this does affect, I know, a lot of women as well. So, but thank you, this has been fantastic. And I think, John, you're quite right to call to action. It's you know, a policy is a policy, but what happens next? So and I know that you'll be there with the challenge every step. So thank you for coming, and we're going to move to the resolution. So sorry. Oh, I keep forgetting you, Pippa. Come on, come forward. Apologies.
Thank you. I have to be fair that I was going to say quite a number of my questions have already been answered. So I was thinking of a few more as I was sitting listening. So I would just like to agree this is fantastic and it's brilliant you've been doing this co-production part of it. But I suppose the question I would have following that is what are the plans for a continuation of this co-production so that you are there as part of the implementation, the monitoring back to you, so following this. So just to sort of get an understanding on that. Second question that I had was, we actually had a deputation to Adults and Health Scrutiny Committee, I think in December, around this, and it was really around accessible toilets for people with disabilities. And in that meeting, there was mention of discussion around looking at future planning policies for new developments. And if they would have accessible toilets. So I just wondered if that was something that was actually being progressed with our officers at the moment. And then a final thing, I think you've touched on it, but just to sort of reiterate around this card scheme, I can see that's a good first step to get businesses used to the idea, but I think I would fully advocate, you know, that lots of people need the toilet for, you know, and wouldn't necessarily have a card. So I think the idea of promoting businesses to actually allow and people to come in to use their toilets, I think it's brilliant. So those are my 3 questions. Thank you.
Thanks for the questions. on plans for continuation of co-production, as if Lose for Haringey would allow us to carry on doing any of it without them. And why would we want to anyway? Why would we want to do that? It's a really important relationship, so that continues absolutely. We'll begin to map that out next once we've got through, obviously tonight, etc. Yes, you mentioned deputation on accessible toilets and access to toilets for disabled people. I think Will and the team took away some of those the points that were made in that deputation, brought them back to Lose for Haringey as well, and there was a discussion about some of those things being integrated into the strategy. And I think John's indicated he is meeting with some of the disabled community or disabled organisations, if you like, locally, to make sure that, as he puts it, we're ironing out the different kinds of needs and balancing that. And that's an important part of the work going forward. And I agree, the card scheme is a thing. In a way, it's a way to I think continue to break. Hopefully tonight people feel we're breaking down the taboo in having such open conversation, and the card scheme's part of that as well. It's but it's a step, and it's not the everything. But no one's. I'd just add something else, which is no one's pretending any of this is easy, and that some of the answers and solutions aren't easy. Not least because we've had a long conversation about budget, so we know those things are challenging. But I think what's here in the room is the will. You've heard from the leader as well, the will and the passion and the ability to walk together through the work and the challenges.
Thank you. So if we can move to the resolution, which is on page 550 of the agenda, are we all agreed? Great, excellent. Thank you, and thank you for coming. Excellent. So we can move back to item 12, which is Woodside Avenue. This is the sales strategy and updated total scheme costs. So this is over to you, Councillor Williams.
So 100 Woodside Avenue, currently under construction and actually very almost completed, will soon bring 32 new council homes in the west of the borough, and will provide 4 fully wheelchair accessible 2-bedroom flats, 10 1-bedroom flats, 13 2-bedroom flats, 5 3-bedroom family homes. Alongside the council homes, 9 homes will be sold on the open market to bring a vital revenue to cross-subsidise these council homes. The scheme is in progress, and when completed will create a new community in Muswell Hill with over 830 square metres of fresh green landscaping, the planting of 46 new trees, a new subway to Parkland Walk, and an improved stairway to Woodside Avenue from Muswell Hill. The 3 buildings are tenure blind, that is, the same materials and design details, so that council rent homes and those for sale are indistinguishable. At the centre of the 3 buildings is a communal courtyard, private gardens and balconies. The communal courtyard, garden and play spaces have been designed to be used by all residents throughout the scheme. The scheme has been carefully designed to integrate with the neighbouring Parkland Walk and Highgate Woods. All 3 buildings have been designed to Passive House design principles to achieve the highest levels of energy efficiency, triple glazed windows, photovoltaic panels on the roofs, and additional insulation are just some of the measures that have been integrated into the design of the scheme. The combination of the contextual setting and the implementation of Passive House principles has led to a unique scheme which addresses design quality and sustainability as one. The 32 council homes will achieve Passive House certification, and this could not be a more significant moment in which to be building new, genuinely affordable homes that will reduce energy use and costs to a minimum, future-proofing against surges in energy prices and reducing likelihood of energy poverty. If you please see from the report, this is going to set out our strategy as described.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any questions from the Cabinet on this one? No. Councillor Connor? Oh, no, hang on. Councillor Colin? You can still come forward.
Hi, have we market tested the sale of the properties?
Pardon?
Have we market tested the value of the sale?
Well, we have an inbox full of people who want to be the purchasers of these properties. So I think it's well tested, yes.
Councillor Connor, did you?
Thank you. And I would just like to say it's great to see them up. I'm about to go and visit them any day soon. So it'll be really good to go around them at last. So thank you. So question 1, the report references that the sale of the properties is needed to achieve financial viability. Given the additional costs on the project, can you confirm how viable the scheme is based on the known financials against the original proposal estimate, and how it has remained financially viable? So question 2, will you be placing any restrictions on the future use of these properties within the leases that are leased to prevent them to be used as either second homes or short-term letting accommodation? So that's just on the leased accommodation. And finally, there's been a lot of concern from residents around car use. Now, I know that the actual scheme itself is a car, it's bicycle, isn't it? It's not a car allowed scheme. Thank you, the right term. But just to sort of give reassurance to residents who are still concerned about there going to be a huge number of cars being parked locally. What's the proposals around, because I've been approached by lots of residents saying that, well, when people come to see them stay, there's going to be all this huge increase in parking. So is there any money being put aside in the SIL for looking at, re-looking at a CPZ in case that there are, any concerns coming up 6 months, say, after the all the flats are full and everyone is, everyone's happy? And then finally, sorry, attached to that car parking one, it's just around the carers, because I know there's some great flats that are specifically designed for people with disabilities, and there's some car parking spaces specifically for those flats. But I just wondered, are there going to be any those extra permits that are allowed if they need 2 carers, if it's hoist, and they'll need 2 carers, maybe 2 cars? Would they get any sort of permits if they needed it, if they needed to park elsewhere locally? Thank you.
So yes, it is viable. I will bring Robbie in on this, but it's there was extensive, which you're probably aware of, additional works to be done around Thames Water sewer, which did push the costs up a bit. But
yeah, I think I think the team, although it was a lengthy, a lengthy process working with Thames Water, what it did achieve is the costs were brought to a sort of manageable place. It's worth saying, although we can't go through the numbers exactly, we have seen a rise in the value of the private homes that is higher than the additional costs on the scheme.
The leases and freehold have obviously been impacted by the somewhat fabulous Renters' Rights Act that's come to light, and all that, and also leasehold reform. So actually how we're treating that has been updated. I don't think we've got anything in there. I don't think we'd have any powers as described, but let me just double check.
I think in terms of sales, they'd be subject to the normal rules and laws. So obviously, if you take short-term letting as an example, there's clear limitations to the amount of days that can be used through law, and so that those properties would be subject to that in exactly the same way. Additionally, as in a leasehold, you would generally need freeholder permission to do that. So, so that would also restrict it further, but that wouldn't be the same for the 2 freehold houses. There was another. What was the other? The short-term lettings, and what was the other one?
The next question is about parking, essentially, which I don't think I don't think really I've got the knowledge to know about all that parking stuff.
Seema's just going to come in on the parking.
Sorry, Jack. I know it's your favourite subject, but I've got it before you. So the way that requests for parking will work, so it's not going to be put in there that after 6 months we're going to do a review and put a CPZ in. If there is a problem because of the car-free development, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. And it's something that residents who are not in the car-free development, not in the new area, are feeling that there's going to be parking pressure, then through their ward councillor or directly, they can ask for a review. And I know that you think, and a lot of people think, that if people do want a CPZ, we're very fast to accommodate. But yeah, so that's how it will start. Sometimes when new developments go up, it gets absorbed and there isn't really a parking pressure. And sometimes when a new development goes up, then we start to see residents coming and asking us for a request, and there's a process for that.
Thank you. So we will return to the resolution after considering exempt information at item 25. If we can move to item 13, which is admission to schools, determined admission arrangements for 27-28. Councillor Brabazon.
Thank you, Chair. This is the annual report which is required to bring to Cabinet, asking you to agree, subject following the public consultation, that we publish the admissions arrangements on the Council's website on before 15th of March 2026, including advice on the right to object to the school's adjudicator. You will know that school admissions is bounded by lots of rules and procedures, and so this report refers to. But in summary, we have to always produce admissions arrangements which reflect the numbers of children in our schools. And as we know, it's regrettable that the numbers are declining, which means that we have to continue to change planned admissions numbers, and the report sets out in a table. It's actually paragraph 6.13, not 5.13, which shows the proposals to the change planned admissions arrangements for 2026-27. And those are to reduce Rokesley Junior from 3 form entry to 2 form entry, and reduce the numbers at Parkview by 9, and at Highgate Wood and Gladesmore by 3. I'm not sure there's much more to add in this introduction, except to ask you to support the recommendations in paragraph 3, which are simply the formal things we need to do to progress to advertise the admissions arrangements. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brabazon. Is there any questions from the Cabinet on this item? No. Okay, Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of quick questions, really. So will there be any impact on the range of subjects taught within the schools if you're reducing the numbers? Does that have an impact on the teachers that can be, employed within those schools, and therefore will it have an impact on the curriculum? The question 2, and I generally don't know where the location of the 2,000 homes that you've got programmed to build. But has that been taken into account when you're looking at which schools to reduce or close, because of obviously building new homes and having families in? Yeah, thank you.
Regarding the first question, the impact on schools, reduction in numbers means reduction in budget. That's the problem. So it's not really, does it affect the curriculum? It might, but it mainly affects school organisation. That becomes a matter for the school to determine if it needs to restructure to meet the new numbers and the financial impact on their budgets. And the local authority's job is to work with the schools in order to make that, to mitigate that as best we can. But schools have known about the decline in numbers for a very long time. And it has been in the last few years, the local authority has had to take the issue and say, we must confront this. We can't not confront it. And it's a London-wide issue. I think there are only 3 authorities that have got rising numbers in the whole of London. Sorry, on the I don't know whether Carla would want to comment on that. I'll just answer your second question about the homes. We've had many discussions about the impact of building the new homes and how that might translate into children. You know, when they do the plan, they talk about child yield and all that. I would hope that it would increase numbers in our schools. But we are where we are now, and much as our strategy is to keep going as we build more family homes to prevent families moving out of London or being pushed out, come out of temporary accommodation, deal with the churn of the population, because we need it stabilised. Hopefully it will make a difference to the schools, but I can't predict that.
Thank you. So if we can agree the resolution, which is on page 362 of the agenda, do we all agree? Great. Okay, item 14, which is the approval of next steps for the Wood Green Station Road sites. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is a paper asking for the approval to appoint a multidisciplinary team to develop plans for the development of the Station Road sites. This is a collection of buildings. You're all familiar with them, as we spend a lot of time in at least one of those buildings, in Alexander House. This is, you know, on the one hand, it's a big opportunity that we will have to develop, as we are the landowner and the owner of all of those buildings. So, you know, it's in a prime site right at the heart of our metropolitan town centre. So we, you know, should have ambitions for developing a building, especially on that corner site, that is going to merit being in that, you know, in that particular place in the borough. The plan is that we would ask the multidisciplinary professional team to take plans forward to up to a planning application, which would be a hybrid application. This means that we can put a detailed application in for the first phase of the site, which we think will be on the western end of Station Road, and that we can develop council housing on that site. So that'd be a major plus and be an addition to the house building programme going forward. But we can have an outline planning application to add in our own protections about what we want to see developing on that site, and those decisions will be taken at a later stage. So I'll leave my remarks there.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Any questions from the Cabinet for Councillor Gordon? Councillor Desneves.
Thank you, Chair. Just a short question, at the risk of being too parochial, that just to ensure that residents will be, of course, fully participate in this process, won't they? And have the opportunity to contribute to the work that we're going to do in Wood Green. Obviously, we're nearby now and people take great interest, as you know. So just wanted to air that, really, give you the opportunity to sort of talk about that, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks. And of course, you know, in order for us to get to this particular stage, we've been having extensive engagement. You know, we developed the Shaping Wood Green strategy, having spoken to lots and lots of stakeholders of, you know, and residents and businesses, you know, all around the Wood Green area. And so we sort of feel, again, we feel quite confident that we've encapsulated what people want. You know, this is going to be a really strategic site. You know, it's the first thing that you see when you come out of Wood Green Tube. At the moment, you see River Park House, which is not the prettiest building in the world. And so, you know, I think there's a big opportunity here for developing that site. And obviously we're, you know, as the council, we'll be the prime movers, and we hope that we'll be able to set a high standard in what goes on that development, according to the, you know, ambitions of what we know people in Wood Green want.
Any more questions from the Cabinet? Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair. So question one. For many years, we've been asking for details of the business case behind the delivery of the Civic Centre and what will happen with the Station Road site. Beyond the western site, it's clear from this report that a definitive plan was never developed that truly merited the Civic Centre development. When will we receive a full report into the Civic Centre return on investment, taking into account the ongoing additional spend on the Station Road site and reduction in market appetite for the expected delivery from those sites in the previous outlined business case? Question one. Question two, but a bit shorter. If there's going to be an 18-month gap between opening the Civic Centre and demolishing the old buildings with a further 6-month gap before construction begins, why didn't the council start the process 2 years sooner to avoid the 2 years of ongoing expense for their vacancy? And question three, it's estimated that over 4 million will be needed just to get us to the hybrid planning application stage. Is there any estimate of what further costs Haringey would occur to develop these sites? Has this cost been factored in the capital investment and expenditure of the MTFS and capital strategy?
Don't know if I can even read my writing here. In terms of the outline business case for the Civic Centre, there's reference in the paper, as I'm sure you've read thoroughly, which is around about 9.10, I think, that paragraph, which talks about how we've made up the business case, because obviously there's been some changes since we developed the original business case. We've looked at the market, the way in which we thought that rentals could be a position is no longer the case. So having looked at that, we've had to change that position. And it is all laid out in that case. In terms of, I'll come back to the thing about the gaps, because I think I'm going to get officers to answer how we cope with that, but about the costs of the planning application itself, then obviously I think it's to be applauded that we're going to be building council homes on that western edge of the site. We can't go too high on that site because we've got surrounding buildings, and we just think that would be really appropriate and great for for our council house building programme. But it will also, in addition, added benefit is that it's going to relieve some of the temporary accommodation costs that have been really hindering our budget position for a long time now. So we think there is that additional benefit there, and whenever we take a scheme of a council house building scheme forward, then we've got those planning costs. We don't get that for free just because it's our own local planning authority, as you know. So that cost will be borne by the HRA for that section. I think I'm right in saying, officers can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but maybe somebody could come back and add anything about the business case. We've got a slew of officers here. Just to reiterate that about the business case, if there's anything that I've missed out, and the gap in when we would be moving staff off the site and the redevelopment of the site. I've got to ask officers to come.
Hi, I'll start in terms of the programme. So the programme is indicative, I'd say, and it's taken some time to work through the options, and it's been really important that we've taken that time so we can thoroughly make sure that the recommendation that we're putting forward is best in terms of value and in delivering your corporate objectives. We will be doing everything we possibly can to accelerate delivery and to improve on that programme as we move through the next phases of the project. And obviously working hand in glove with our colleagues in the housing delivery team will help us make sure that we can accelerate as quickly as possible. I don't know if you want to add anything on that, Robbie?
I think you
covered it. Yeah. And I think the position in relation to the Civic Centre business case, as Councillor Gordon said, is clearly set out in the report. But again, at this stage, we are working on assumptions. And as we go through to the next stage of the project, we will be looking to evolve the assumptions and refine them, both in terms of the receipt that we were likely to see, the income that we might be able to generate from the site. So that will be continually evolved through the next stage of the project. But everything that we've got at the moment is set out in the report. Robbie?
Yeah, just in terms of the question on what more will it cost? I mean, we don't tend to release that information because obviously when you're trying to procure a building contract, it's not the best thing to give your view of exactly what it'll be looking at. But you can be assured that the bits that we are looking to build ourselves on balance sheet are sitting in the existing plans.
Thanks.
Thank you. So we will return to the resolutions after considering exempt information at item 26. If we can move to item 15, which is the approval of the voluntary and community sector action plan. Councillor Ovac, can you introduce, please?
Thank you, Chair. The voluntary and community sector is an indispensable part of Haringey, from public health and welfare to environmental work and community cohesion. Voluntary and community organisations provide vital support to residents, often with limited resources. Recognising the crucial role the VCS plays in supporting Haringey's communities, our VCS strategic partner, the Haringey Community Collaborative, developed its priorities through extensive engagement with a wide range of VCS organisations. These priorities are rooted in lived experience and frontline insight, reflecting the voices of organisations that work closest with our residents and understand their needs best. For clarity in the minutes, I would like to note that the correct period for these priorities is 2026-27 rather than the typographical error of 2025-26 shown on the report front sheet. In line with our Labor administration's commitment through the Haringey Deal to work in partnership with our communities, the VCS Action Plan sets out how the Council will strengthen and align its support for the VCS sector. It responds directly to the priorities identified and focuses on key areas, including funding, coordination, and partnership working. This is a focused one-year action plan for 2026-2027, designed to build momentum and strengthen collaboration as we move towards delivering London Borough of Culture. I want to extend my sincere thanks to everyone who contributed to shaping these priorities, the Haringey Community Collaborative, our dedicated VCS organisations, fellow councillors, and our residents. I am confident that this is a more coordinated and collaborative approach, and it will not only strengthen the sector, but will also help deliver meaningful, lasting improvements for the people and communities of Haringey. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the Cabinet? Councillor Connor?
Thank you, Chair. So really just one question, and this might be that I've missed it in the report. So I was just trying to check there, but I couldn't see it. So so our priorities, we include supporting greener choices as part of our the council's what their priority is, but I couldn't see it on the voluntary sector groups bit that they were going to sort of do. So is this something that is still in negotiation and they will be doing this as part of the process, or I'm sorry, I'm just trying to work out because it seems an odd thing that it's not quite aligned, but maybe I've just missed it. Thanks.
Yeah, I think you might have missed it because the last call to action within their priorities is supporting greener choices. So it's the 6 actions. Yeah.
This wasn't very clear at number 6 what that was. So okay, if it, further information would be great. Thank you very much. Thank
you. So if we can move to the resolution, which is on page 362 of the agenda, we're in agreement? Agreed, thank you. Oh God, no, I've got the wrong, sorry, I had the wrong page. It was 492, but it's agreed. Okay, so if we can go to item 18, which is High Road West next steps. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just in case anybody's got any doubts, one of the highest priorities of this administration is to be building council homes for local residents, and this paper is asking for your permission to move forward at last. I know it's been a long time coming with High Road West, but we are now wanting to move forward with building the first phase ourselves of the in the Love Lane estate on High Road West. So this is an agreement to release phase 1A from the development agreement. We have agreed that with Lend-Lease, and we can deliver 61 council homes at council rent on that site. So we're asking to procure a contractor to deliver those council homes. The 61 homes include 4 fully wheelchair accessible 2-bedroom flats, 21 beds, 10 2-beds, in total 23 3-beds, and 4 4-bedroom homes. And communal garden, play space, private balconies, and all built to the same sort of quality that Councillor Carlin referred to earlier at the beginning of this meeting, of the high quality of the council homes that we'll be building. So I'm really pleased to be bringing this paper forward, and I hope I'll have your agreement.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. And I might take the opportunity to name drop slightly and to say that the Mayor of London was extremely impressed with the quality of our council homes, as we all saw, witnessed and heard last week. Any questions from the Cabinet? Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Gordon. This is a long time coming, and it's very good news. And can I just commend all the people who've been involved to get it to this moment. It's a very special moment, I think, for the residents in Bruce Castle, but also any council tenant would be eligible in the future. My question is just more of a, very along the lines of Councillor Das-Neves in the last agenda item, just a plea to sort of work very closely with the existing residents, especially residents of the adjacent estate on Headcourt and Tented. And I know they are very keen, eagle eyes on how this develops. So that collaborative approach would be very greatly appreciated, because they should also benefit from this, as well as the residents be moving in as well. But well done to all involved. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would just say that as well as obviously working on, all the logistics and that with our neighbours, I know that there's officers in the room that probably know every single tenant on that estate by name, know the names and birthdays of their families and so on. We've been working a long time with these residents, and there will be obviously there's been a landlord offer that's been discussed with them. There is the designs of the council homes have been discussed, and I think what the residents are saying, can you please get on and build these, which is exactly what we are planning to do. But there will be dedicated rehousing team on the estate, so that the homes that are being built can be designed with the tenants in mind. So especially where they need special adaptations, it will be done alongside of the tenants, so that they've got the homes that will last them for life.
Thank you. Any more questions from the Cabinet? Yet more council homes. Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, sorry, I think I might have just missed something. Are we asking questions on agenda item 16 at all at this stage, or because I know you took it earlier as a deputation, but obviously it wasn't right then for me to ask my questions. Is this the right moment, or? I haven't asked a question on item 16 yet, and we're now on item 18. I know 17 was the toilet strategy. So I just wondered at the end of the questions on item 18 if I could I've only got one question to ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll stick with item 18.
16 or which one?
Which would you prefer, Chair? I can do either.
Okay, go first. Go. Yeah, do 16.
Okay, 16. So this was the Downs Lane Park Phase 2 Community Hub. So it was just really one question following the deputation, actually, because the other questions were answered as part of your discussion with them. So it was just around the cafe in the community space bit. The bit that I wasn't sure about was the deputation seemed to be saying that the community space itself was less. And I noted in the answer that there was going to be a cafe. So is the cafe part of that community space, or is there going to be another community space separate to the community cafe? So people could do events, but also people could use the cafe and it was separate. It was just for clarity, really. I just was trying to work out how that was going to work. Thank you. That was my only question on that one.
If I just take that one first, then we come back to High Road West. So I think that the dispute is obviously that we've reduced the footprint from the original size of building, and that's been necessitated by the fact that we've just redistributed some of the budget for that. However, the amount of community space is equivalent to what currently exists in what was the old Luos building, so the pavilion building. Now, the pavilion building, the whole of that building was partly occupied by a nursery. They don't want to continue in any case. The whole building is not suitable, wasn't suitable as a nursery, let alone a community hub. The point I was trying to make, hopefully it was clear, was that the existing hub that is there is just one room. I don't know if you've visited it, but it's one small room with no windows to the outside. So it makes it very dark and unwelcoming, and with a tiny little bar where you can have, you can prepare some meals, there. But the new facility will have proper kitchen. It will have proper space for, hiring out a proper sort of cafeteria type space with garden to it. So the facilities will be much better. They will have all light coming in. You'll be able to see what's going on inside. And the reason that we want a space that you can hire out is because then we want that building to be occupied 24/7, so that it will be able to pay its own way, and this building will be able to do that, whereas you can't do that with the existing building, no matter how much money we would spend on it. So we've looked at all those. So it's about comparing like with like. The facilities that will be available to the community will be at least equivalent, but of a far better quality. Hope that's clear.
Thank you. Okay, so right, agenda item 18, High Road West. So question 1. So obviously you're delivering a section of that High Road West scheme. So what's the council's plan to deliver the remainder of the 2,500 homes, including 546 council homes, as part of the development agreement? Second question, and this is on the capital part. Can the council afford to borrow the £161 million for compulsory purchase? But that was for the entire scheme. Obviously, that includes the other 2,500 homes. And question 3, given the Love Lane estate will effectively be taken out of the development agreement so that the provision can be made by direct delivery, presumably there's an increased cost to the council for this specific part of the original scheme. If so, what concessions will Lendlease be making elsewhere to balance the book so that this decision doesn't just mean the council investing a greater amount than was originally agreed as part of the development agreement for the full delivery of homes across the scheme? Thanks.
Your question's dreadfully long, I have to say. My tiny brain at this time of night. I might have to ask you to repeat.
It was actually Councillor Corley Harrison, so on the housing. So we can blame him. I'm just going to put that there. But it was not ChatGPT, trust me.
So obviously there's still ongoing discussions with Lendlease about the rest of the scheme that we are currently, engaging in with those. Our intention is to deliver, the entire scheme, and that we've got planning permission for, and that we've had a ballot for. So I can ask officers to come in and give an additional make additional points on that. I don't know anything about the extra costs involved in all of the costs for any one of our schemes are embedded in the HRA plan. So and we have to make them stack up. It has to have its nose above the water for every scheme that we engage on, and this is no exception to that, is my understanding. And your question 2, what was it again? Sorry.
So in the capital, it was, it's can the council afford to borrow the 161 million for compulsory purchase, but that was for the entirety of the scheme, not the bit you're doing at the moment. So that's the whole scheme. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I might refer to the 151 officer who's sitting right next to me about about how we manage that capital budget and the borrowings on that and the costs involved on the borrowings.
Yeah, should come back on those. So just on the first one, I guess, just to add to Councillor Gordon in terms of, so we can carry on working with Lendlease for the remainder of the scheme. High Road West, like a lot of these kind of big development projects in London, has a lot of challenges in terms of the budget required. So we're kind of looking at what's possible, but the plan is to continue to deliver the remainder of the 546 council homes as part of that. In terms of the budget, so the land assembly costs, we still have kind of contract provisions with Lendlease in terms of the reimbursement of those costs. So those remain in place, and the council will be reimbursed the majority of those costs as and when kind of the scheme comes forward. A lot of the costs that budget you quoted are in the kind of later parts of the scheme, what we call phase B, which is the northern part of the master plan, and that's pushed back in the medium-term financial strategy in kind of later years. So the provision for the main kind of land assembly we're focusing on now, which is buying back the leasehold interest on the Love Lane estate, is a much smaller proportion of the overall budget. I don't know if that third question can come back on that as well, but I think that third question was just around kind of concessions and discussions with Lendlease. So we're carrying on discussions with Lendlease around the rest of the scheme. A lot of that's just focused on how we can kind of get the scheme going again because of the kind of budgetary challenges, and we're looking at kind of all the provisions in the rounds, but the main focus is just what to both parties, where do we need to push and pull to kind of make it happen and get the homes built. So that's a kind of ongoing discussion, and that will need to come back to cabinet at a later stage.
Okay.
Thank you. So we're going to return to the resolutions after considering exempt information at item 28. Item 19, which is policy update on schools in financial difficulty. Councillor Brabazon.
Thank you. This is a really relatively straightforward report, which is simply to update and amend slightly the scheme of financial regulation and standing orders for schools. We've got a full scheme for financing schools who have obviously, as everyone knows, schools have delegated budgets, and the schools and governing body are in charge of their budgets. We now want to amend our document for schools in financial difficulties so that the council has more oversight, given the fact that many schools are in deficit, and the council in the end can have responsibility for those deficits and has to underwrite them. So with the officer seeking approval, seeking agreement whereby any school with expenditure over £25,000 will have to seek council approval before making commitments, and that applies to all spending, including staffing structure changes, procurement, any other expenditure exceeding 25,000. This is really important because we need to get some sort of handle on school deficits. So I'm simply asking Cabinet to approve the revised scheme and approve the introduction of the £25,000 spending limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brabazon. Any questions from the Cabinet on this item? No. Councillor Connor?
These are very short. Question 1. How many local authority maintained schools in Haringey are in deficit? Question 2. How big are the worst deficits? How big are the worst deficits? Apologies. And then how many schools don't currently have a viable pathway back into balance?
So around the deficit budget, I'm going to hand over to Anne for the detail. There are lots of schools in deficit because, as you know, school budgets have been very constrained, and this is all compounded by the fall in numbers. So there are issues, which is why we're bringing this report. You asked the third question about the impact on, sorry, just rephrase the question.
How many schools have a viable pathway back from deficit?
Well, at the moment, the officers are working with all the schools. So I'll hand over to Anne for the detail.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. The answer to your first question, how many schools are currently in deficit, is 34. The answer to your second question, what is the highest level of deficit, that currently stands at 900,000. And then your last question sort of supports the second question, that we work with schools to reduce deficits. There isn't really much of an option because the processes mean that that's the objective. The deficits can't continue. And in our earlier work, we talked about school balances and school places and reducing school staff. So that's what we're working to. So all the schools have to have a plan to come back into budget within a 3-year window. It is the plan. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So we agree the resolutions which are on page 600 of the agenda. Are we all in agreement? Okay. Item 20, Pride in Place funding. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think we've left the best till last. Because this is seeking Cabinet's approval to accept £1.5 million of capital funding of Pride in Place funding from the government. We absolutely need this money. We know we can spend it, and in the time allowed, it comes in 2 tranches. So we've been working very closely with the MPs that are within our borough, and with residents and stakeholders to make sure we have got a balanced approach to how this money will be spread across the borough. So it includes a whole list of suggested schemes that will be funded. We're looking about increasing the canopy and providing street trees across the borough, so at least 60 new trees in residential streets. Is really important to provide shade in the summer and also to soak up all the water that we seem to be getting in the last month. I will, by the way, just say, sorry if you'll forgive me, Chair, but just going back to the Down Lane Park thing, part of that investment was putting the rain gardens into Down Lane Park because it's built on a floodplain, and every winter that park used to be flooded and you couldn't walk across it. And that, despite all of the rain in the last month that we've seen, there's no rain on the path because the rain gardens are working, and the geese have returned to the park as well, which is really rather pleasant. So, and it's street trees across the borough. I think really welcome it will be the refurbishment of the paddling pools, Bruce Castle, Lordship Rec, Priory Park, improvements in Lymington Avenue, on Duckett's Common, more equipment going into Duckett's Common that's been needed for some time, the Hornsey Railway Bridge artwork on that bridge, skateboarding park in Tottenham, where we know that we've got international skateboarders actually using the arches under the Undercroft there, and we want to make sure we're improving the security there. Public realm in Somerford Grove and Northumberland Park, nature play in Lordship Rec, and in Bruce Castle Park improvement to some paths, and to protect our oldest tree that we're very proud of to host in Bruce Castle Park. So I hope you'll approve this list. If you do, we'll spend the money really quick, and then hopefully our residents see those tangible improvements that they deserve.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. You're right, we did save one of the best till last here. Any questions from the Cabinet? Councillor Baberson.
Chair, it's not really a question, it's just to say how really pleased we are to see Duckett's Common in this, because that play area really does need a lot of work, and we're just really pleased that it's there. And also, of course, the long fought for play area at the front of Lordship Rec, so that people in Tower Gardens can have access to a playground. I think it's great. Thank you.
I might know a 5-year-old that would be delighted with the paddling pools. Any more questions from the Councillor Carlin?
Thank you. I'm really pleased that we have received this money from the government and that we are able to invest in our parks and also put in more trees. And I just wondered, in terms of that, how are we going to let people know that the investment is coming? Thank you.
Yeah, well, I should just say that I think there's only 95 authorities that received this Pride in Place money, so we are one of those 95. So we are we're really happy about getting that, and you know, obviously we'll be working with residents about how these schemes are put in. So you know, it's going to be, you know, where we can co-design, co-produced, and as we normally do with our Haringey deal. And you know, method of working with our local residents. So obviously we'll be putting out their general comms, but you know, we want local residents involved when this is coming in. We know that the paddling pools, you know, there's lots of parents that are going to want to be taking part in, you know, deciding how these things are going to look. We have got, I think if you look in the paper, you can see all of the groups that we are going to be consulting along the way and already have consulted in terms of getting this off the ground. We've had to make sure, you know, obviously there's a lot more schemes we could have picked, you know, but we had to try and find something that we could actually deliver in time. It's time sensitive. It's a time sensitive spend, so we have to be able to get it within a certain period of time, and that's been helped us to sort of whittle it down from a bigger list to if the government wants to give us any more money, we've got a longer list, so you know, they can always hand us a bit more and we will get it out the door.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Ali.
Just to also another tribute act to the amazing investment going to Bruce Castle, especially the great oak, 60k of money, very famous, most beautiful tree in the borough, of course, but also the paddling pools as well, something that we're really quite excited to see. And again, just to echo Councillor Carlin's comment about how do we make sure that residents really know how much of this is going to their priorities and getting it out as soon as humanly possible. Thank you.
Oh, you're responding to the tribute, please.
Yeah, more of a comment than, but yeah, obviously we're going to be, you know, discussing with residents about how we're going to implement this, and you know, it really is a good news story, and we want to make sure that this is done as quickly as possible, and residents this summer will have improved paddling pools to go to. We're hoping.
Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chair. Question 1. So my understanding from the report is that officers submitted proposals. I was just going to ask why members weren't asked to put forward their thoughts and ideas. I'm sure there would have been you'd have been deluged by the members. Question 2. The scheme explicitly talks about revitalising high streets, many of which have been hard hit through COVID, cost of living, increased bills, taxes, and business rate hikes. I was just going to ask why no funding has been allocated to support our struggling town centres, which are often the heart of our communities. Thank you.
There's been quite a short period of time between getting this allocation of money, and obviously, you know, we have had to have a lot of discussion with MPs, as you know, they were sort of involved in terms of it coming down from the government, and certainly members will be involved with discussing these particular schemes. But in terms of, you know, broadening it out further, it wasn't possible in the timescale that we had. In terms of the high streets, yeah, there's other areas of funding that we have been able to work with. So, for example, in Turnpike Lane, where we've been doing work on, fronts for new frontage and for businesses in Turnpike Lane. So there's other schemes that we've been working with. There's been some shop front improvements in the Tottenham High Road as well over time. We've done things like the Bruce Grove toilet improvement, where we took that off the at-risk register and so on. So there's lots of, wherever we've got pots of money and we can be using it like that, then we have done. I don't know if Abigail has got anything in addition to add to that. So.
Okay, if we can agree the resolutions which are on page 688 of the agenda, are we all in agreement? Excellent. Item 21, which is minutes of, thanks Abby, minutes of other bodies. Can we please note the minutes of the cabinet member sign-ins from pages 701 to 710? Can we please note that? Item 22, significant and delegated actions. Can we please note these actions taken by directors on pages 711 and 12? Item 23, new items of urgent business. There are no new items of urgent business. Item 24, which is exclusion of press and public. Item 17 allows for consideration of exempt information in relation to item 9. Can I please move that the press and public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting to consider it as exempt information, which is defined under paragraphs 3, Part 1, Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Do we all agree? Okay, so I'm formally closing the public section of the meeting.